Hey guys, thanks for tuning back into my channel. So this is my first video for the new year 2022. I'm very excited to release this video because I feel like we're going to be covering what I think is a very interesting topic, another core building block of programming, and that is of course conditionals. So if you're new to the channel, this is a continuation of the series of videos that I've been making to help beginners learn the fundamentals of programming using JavaScript. So in the previous videos, we went over variables and we went over operators. So two very important fundamentals of programming. So if it's the first time you guys are watching or have landed on my channel, I highly recommend that you watch those videos. I will leave links to those videos in the description of this video. Um, yeah, so this is the continuation of the series, and like I alluded to, we will be going over a very, very important part of programming in this video, which is going to be conditionals, right? So if you guys want to follow along, which again I highly recommend that you do, just go to jsfiddle.net. So we've been using jsfiddle.net to write and execute our JavaScript code for all of the videos that I've made so far. It's very easy to use, so just go to jsfiddle.net. I'll leave a link in the description of the video for the code that we will be writing in this video. But once you land on jsfiddle.net, just you'll probably be by default on the HTML tab, so you're going to want to click on the JavaScript tab over here. Okay. So conditionals. Let's talk a little bit about what conditionals are. So in programming, there are times where you would want to make decisions in your code, right? So you would want, for example, a certain piece of code to run under a certain condition, and you'd want for another piece of code to run under another condition, right? So a different condition, right? So take for example, like a real world example is, say that we have a budget app that will send us a notification if we exceed our monthly limit, right? So that's an example of a real world usage of conditions, and it's something that we use in almost every single program that we write. So whether it's you're working in your own personal project or you're contributing to an existing code base, you'll come across a lot of conditionals being used. So again, conditionals are a way for us to control the execution flow of our code. We can say, okay, I want this piece of code to run if a condition is true. Otherwise, I want another piece of code to run, right? So as you can see, like I said, it's a way for us to control the flow of our code by doing like these decisions based on whatever amount of conditions that we want, right? So, but before we dive into the common type of conditional statements that we can use, I want to talk a little bit about logical operators. So in the previous video, we already went over some of the common types of operators that you will be working with in most cases. However, I did deliberately not include another type of operator that I believe is also very common. And these are logical operators. And the reason I didn't go over those was because logical operators go hand in hand with conditionals. So I just thought it was a good idea for me to save like um, these type of operators for this video as we were going over conditionals. So logical operators, quite simply, are a way for us to combine or connect more than one condition or more than one comparison, and at the end of that comparison, we would receive a Boolean value, right? So if you remember from the variables video, a Boolean value is a true or false value. So in the previous video, we already went over some of the common comparison operators. So if you guys don't remember, we went over the operator that checks if two values are equal. So that's the equal equal. We went over the greater than equal, the less than equal, and a couple of others. So again, you guys should probably watch the previous video if you don't have any idea of what I'm talking about, but we're not going to be focusing too much on those comparison operators in this video. But in the context of logical operators, just know that logical operators are a way for us to combine combine two or more comparisons or conditions that will eventually resolve to either a true or false value. So let's take a look at some of these. There are three main ones there are three logical operators that we will be using. And the first one is what we call the logical AND operator. So the AND operator, okay? And so in this example, um, let me just follow the same execution of our code that we've been using in the past videos, which is outputting our result to the console. So console.log to print whatever we supply in the parentheses here, and the value will be outputted to the console over here. Okay, so let's go over the logical AND operator. Let me just type it out first to show you guys what it looks like, then I will explain it. So the logical AND operator is denoted by these double ampersand, I believe is what you call them. It's located above the 7 on your keyboard, or at least that's where it's located on my keyboard. So again, the AND operator is denoted by these double ampersand symbols. So let's take a look at this over here. So this logical AND operator says if whatever is on the left hand side and whatever is on the right hand side of the operator are both true, then this will resolve the true. So if we output this right now, we should get back true. Okay? So actually let me create two variables better, because I think it'll make more sense this way. So I'm gonna create a variable called let's say x equals to true, and let's create y equals to true. Okay, and then instead of true and true, we'll just use the variable, so by calling them by the variable name, so x and y. Okay, so like I just mentioned, the AND operator works as this. It says, okay, if x is true and y is true, then this expression will resolve to true. So x here is true and y here is also true. So when we output this to the console, we expect to get back true, which we do. So now if one of these variables had a value other than true, so of course if it was false, then this comparison would in turn yield false, because the AND operator requires both of the operands. So operands, by the way, it is what you call the variables being used on the left hand side and the right hand side of the operator. So we usually refer to those as operands. So in this case, the x is true, but y is false. So we know that the AND operator requires both operands to be true in order for the comparison to return true, right? So in this case, it would not return true because one of our operands, in this case y, is false. So if we run this now, we should get back false over here. Okay, so that's the logical AND operator. Again, you can see that if we revert back to the original form where both our variables were true, then we know that this comparison will result to true because the logical AND operator checks um, checks that both the operands in our comparison result are true, and then it will result to true. And if it's not, then it will just result to false. So that's the logical AND operator. The next type of operator that we have is the logical OR operator. So the OR operator, and this one is different. So whereas with the AND operator, we require that both our operands um, be true in order for the comparison to result to true. But the OR operator differs because instead of requiring both operands to be true, it only requires for one of the operands to be true in order for the comparison to result to a true value. So the OR operator is denoted by this double pipe sign. I believe that's how you call them, double pipe sign. This is how we say, okay, this comparison will be using the OR operator, right? So if we run this, we will still get back true because in this case both of our variables are still true. However, if we change, let's come over here and change, let's change y to equal false. Okay, so we change y to equal false. So we're saying here, return true if x is true or y is true. So when we run this, we still get true. Okay, and that's because, like I mentioned, the OR operator doesn't need both operands to have true values in order for the comparison to result to true. It only needs one. So in this case, x is still true, but over here we changed y to be false. So when we come here, it will do a check. Is x equal to true? Yes. So it will immediately resolve to true. Okay? So that's the logical OR operator. The last type of operator, logical operator that I want to go over is the logical NOT operator, or the NOT, or just the NOT operator. Okay. So the NOT operator will return true if the condition is false, and it will return false if the condition is true. So let's see an example. So let's do console.log. The NOT operator is denoted by the exclamation mark symbol. I believe that's what you call it. So this symbol right here, the exclamation mark symbol on your keyboard, it should be above the number one key on your keyboard. Okay, so this is how we denote the NOT operator. And if we do NOT x here, so remember I told you that this operator will return true if the condition is false. So because x is true in this example, we will get back false. And that's what we expect, right? We want this operator says that, okay, if whatever condition or comparison is being made has a truth value to it, or true value, it will return false. Now let's see what happens if we replace x with y. Let's run this, and we get back true. Okay? And that's because this NOT operator will return true if the condition is false. And like I just showed you, it will return false if the condition is true. Okay? So these are the three types of logical operators. We have the AND operators, the OR operator, and then the not operator. So just a quick recap: the AND operator requires both operands in the comparison, right, to have a true value in order for the condition to result to true. The OR operator only requires that one operand in the comparison to have a true value in order for the um, operation to be true. And the NOT operator will say that it will say, okay, return true if the condition or the value that we are testing is false, and it will return false if the value we're testing is true. Okay? So those are the logical operators. Now let's get into some actual usage of conditionals. So we have the conditionals that I want to go over in this video, or the three types, are the if statement, the if else statement, and the if else statement. Okay, so if you remember early on in the video, I said that conditions are a way for us to control which piece of code will be executed under certain conditions, right? So it allows us to control the execution flow of our code. So let's go over the first one, if statement. So let me just type this out. Or actually, I'm going to declare a new variable called age, and I'll set this age equal to 12. So let's imagine we're writing a program that will determine if given a certain age, a person is allowed to drink or not. And by drink, I mean consume alcohol. So let me just type this out, and then I'll explain it to you guys. So if age is greater than 18, console.log, you can drink. You can have a drink. Okay, so this is how we define a basic if statement. So the first thing that we start off with is the if keyword followed by parentheses. Within parentheses is where you will place your condition or your comparison. In this case, the comparison that we're making, or the condition that we're doing, is we're checking if age, so we declared this new variable age, set it to an initial value of 12, and we're checking if age is greater than 18. Then so we start with the if keyword followed by our condition in these parentheses, and then to define what we call the body of the if statement, we use these curly braces. So we have a pair of curly braces here, so a opening curly braces and a closing curly braces, and then anything between these curly braces is what we call the body of the if statement. So any code that you write in here will be executed if the condition up here results to true. So we're saying here, and like if you just say this in human language, if age is greater than 18, then output to the console, you can have a drink. So if you see here, age is 12. 12 is not greater than 18, so this condition results to false. So we expect that this console.log would not be outputted to the console because our condition is not true, or the comparison that we're making is not true. So let's test that out. So you can see we don't get this string printed out to the console, so you can have a drink. But if we change age to 19, now our condition should result to true because age, being 19, is greater than 18. So we should expect this code to run, and this code, all this code is doing is outputting you can have a drink to the console. So let's execute it. And there we go. We get this code outputted to the console, or this string outputted to the console by controlling this is a way of us to control what piece of code we want to run under a certain condition, and the condition in this case is checking to see if age is greater than 18. So hopefully this made sense. This is the first conditional statement that we can, or the first type of if statement that we can use. I should have mentioned earlier that there are three main forms of if statements that we can use, and we just gotta look at the easier one, the more basic one, which is the if statement. And the next two types that we have are the if else statement and the if else if statement. But so this is the if statement. Let's take a look now at the if else statement. So let me just type it out and then I'll explain it. So if age is greater than 18, output to the console, you can have a drink. Now this is the new part, or the second part, which we call the else clause. And let's output, in this case, you are not allowed to have a drink. Okay? So this part of the if statement where we should be familiar with now because we just covered it up here, right? We just have a if statement that's doing the same check. So it's checking if age is greater than 18. If it is, then we will execute whatever code is in the body of the if statement. So in this case, the only code that's in the body of the if statement is this console.log, where we are outputting the string you can have a drink. The new part here is the else clause. So this acts like the default block of the if statement. So the else clause, any code that you define in the else clause will be executed if no prior condition was true. Okay, so that means if our if statement was not true, then this else clause would be executed. So let's take a look at that. Let's see an example of that. So right now age is still greater than 18 because we changed it to be 19 up here. So we should still get back you can have a drink. I'll put it to the console. So you can see we now have it here as well. But let's change age back to something less than 18. So let's say 16. Okay? Now age won't be greater than 18. It will be less than 18. So this condition will yield a false value. And because it yields a false value, the code in here will be skipped, or the code within our else clause will be executed because no prior condition has resulted true. So let's test that out by running code. And you can see we get you are not allowed to have a drink. Okay? So again, just to recap the if else statement, we still start off by defining a regular if statement. The only difference is that we have an additional portion appended to the if statement, which is the else clause. And the else clause is a way for us to define any default code that should be executed if no prior condition is true, or resulted to true. Okay, so that's the if else statement. And then the next type of conditional is a very interesting one, which is the if else if statement. So in contrast to the previous if statements we've been using, we've only had one source as the condition so far, right? So we've only had one condition to control the flow of whatever code, or of the code that's executed. But what if we wanted to have multiple conditions? And what if we wanted to have more than one execution flow? In the previous examples, we've only saw an example of us having one, and with the previous if else statement that we went over, we had just two, right? So we had the if block and the else clause block, right? But what if we wanted to have multiple conditions and not just one? Well, that's where we can use the if-else statement. So again, let me just type it out and then I will explain it to you guys. So if age is greater than 18, let's do the same console log here. So you can have a drink. Now comes the new part. So to handle multiple conditions, we use the else if clause. So it looks like this. Else if, in parentheses, we place an additional condition that we want to test for. So here we're doing age greater than 18. Let's do if age is greater than 18 and age is less than or equal to 70. Let's do another console log. You should retire, or I want to make this greater than or equal to 70. You should retire from drinking. And then let's just add our else clause at the end, and we're just going to output this over here. Okay, so the two parts of this if statement that you should be familiar with by now is the if statement and the else clause. But remember, I told you that we have a way of doing multiple conditions, not just one. So to do that, we use the else if statement, right? So let's see what this is doing. So the first if statement will check if age is greater than 18, and if it is, then we will output this string here. You can have a string. If this is not true, okay, we will continue to the next condition. And the next condition is right over here, this else if, where in the parentheses, we're checking if age is greater than 18 and age is greater than or equal to 70. So we are using a logical operator, and the operator is the logical AND operator. Okay, so one that we just went over here at the beginning of the video. Okay, so if this condition results to true, then we will execute this line of code. You should retire from drinking. Okay, if none of our prior conditions executed or resulted to true, so if this was false and this was also false, then the code within our else clause, the body of our else clause, will be executed. So we should get the string printed to the console. You are not allowed to have a string. Okay, so age right now has a value of 16, okay? So is age greater than 18? Is 16 greater than 18? No, okay? So we don't expect this line of code to be executed, so this will be skipped. So now we have a second condition that we're testing for, so now we will move on to this condition over here. So is age greater than 18? Well, no, because age is 16, so this is false. And because we're using a logical AND operator, it requires both operands to be true. So in this case, this comparison will result to false. So we will move on to our default block, which is the else clause, where we will simply print you are not allowed to have a drink. So let's run it to prove that. And you can see we get you are not allowed to have a drink. Okay, but let's switch this up a bit. Let's change age to 18. Okay, so age is now 18. So, oops, I changed it in the wrong spot. I want to change it over here. So let's set age equals to 19. Okay, so age, now I've changed it to 19. So age now being 19 is greater than 18. So this comparison is true. So we expect this code to be executed. So let's run it. And we get you can have a drink. So that's exactly what we expect. And notice once a condition passes or once a condition is true, all of the following conditions will be skipped. Okay? So that's an important thing to note. Now let's test for the second condition. So let's set age to 80. Okay? We now have age being set to 80, and actually for this to work, we need to have, I'm just realizing, a second condition over here to check if age is less than 70. Okay. So age is 80. So is age greater than 18? Yes, it's 80. So it's way greater than 18. Is age less than 70? Well, no, because it's 80. So this condition or this comparison will now fail. So let's move on to the second condition, right? So let's see. Is age greater than 18? Yes, it is. And is age greater than 70? Greater than or equal to 70? Yes, it is. It's 80. So we expect when we execute this code, we expect this line of code to be executed, right? So we expect to see in the console outputted, you should retire from drinking. So let's execute. And there we go. We get you should retire from drinking. Okay. So the if statement gives us the ability to um, use multiple conditions, right? Instead of just one, so that we can have more than one execution flow for our code. So now in this example, you can see that we have 1, 2, 3 possible execution flow for our code depending on the input we give our conditions. Okay? So that was the last type of if statement that I wanted to go over. So just to recap, we went over the if statement, we went over the if else statement, and then lastly the if else if statement. So this video we looked at conditionals. However, this is part 1 of the conditionals. I should have mentioned that in the beginning of this video. I'm just noticing, but there's actually another way that we can perform conditions, and that is by using the switch statement. However, this video I don't want to make it too long, so I will split this video in 2 parts. So in this first part that we just went over here, we got to look at the logical operators, and then we looked into 3 of the common types of if statements that we can use. And in the next video, we will go over another way for us to perform conditions, which is using the switch statement. Okay, so that's just about it for this video. I just wanted to mention that you can also find the article posts for this video if you prefer reading, or you can use them both, whatever suits you. And I will leave a link to this article in the description of the video, along with the code for this video. So I just want to thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this wasn't too confusing. This was part 1 of conditionals. In the next part, we will be going over the last type of conditional statement that we can use, which is the switch statement. But thank you guys for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.